They say the past is a ghost, a whisper on the wind, a shadow in your peripheral. But for me it was a predator, waiting, watching, and tonight it finally struck. The first thing I felt wasn't pain, but the sheer, blinding force. Not a car crash, not a stumble in the dark. This was an impact, the kind that rips through silence, shatters porcelain dreams, and pulverizes everything you thought was solid. One moment, I was folding laundry, the mundane rhythm a desperate shield against the memories. The next, the world inverted. A concussive blast tore through the back wall, throwing me across the kitchen like a ragdoll. Plaster dust choked the air, tasting of burnt ozone and pure, unadulterated fear. My ears rang, a high-pitched shriek drowning out the splintering wood, the distant screams, her screams. My daughter. Every instinct I'd buried under years of suburban normalcy, every kill or be killed protocol, detonated in my gut. They weren't just attacking a house. They were attacking a fragile piece, built brick by painful brick. And I knew, with the cold certainty of a man who'd seen too much blood, this wasn't random. This was personal. This was the reckoning. And I was already too late. The stench of cordite filled my nostrils, dragging me back to a lifetime I'd sworn I'd abandoned. My body, older, stiffer, moved on pure muscle memory, searching for a weapon, for a path to her room. Every shadow became an enemy, every creak of settling debris a footstep. I could hear them now, heavy boots on broken glass, guttural commands in a language I recognized with a sickening lurch of my stomach. They hadn't come for possessions. They'd come for us. And as the flickering embers of what used to be my living room cast monstrous shadows, I knew one thing. If I had to burn this entire world down to keep her safe, I wouldn't hesitate. But the question clawing at my throat, the one that made my blood run cold, was, could I even reach her in time? My past wasn't just catching up. It was devouring my present, piece by brutal piece. And the fight, the real fight, had only just begun. In the suffocating quiet of his lab, Alex moved with the phantom grace of a man consumed. Days bled into nights, marked only by the hum of servers and the sterile glow of monitors. His canvas, a shattered smartphone, a relic from a life stolen. Each delicate touch of a micro-soldering iron, each whisper of compressed air, was a prayer, a desperate incantation against the silence. His gaunt face, etched with a grief that time refused to heal, reflected in the inert screen. This wasn't just data recovery. It was an archaeological dig into his own shattered past, a frantic search for the last ghost of Alara. He clung to the cold logic of circuitry because the warmth of memory had become a searing pain. One last chance, one fragile thread to pull her back from the digital dust. The device flickered to life, a fragile heartbeat in the digital void. But its memory was a labyrinth of corruption, fragmented data screaming in a language Alex barely understood. He navigated the broken pathways, a lone explorer in a hostile landscape, his fingers dancing across the interface, searching for any recognizable landmark. Then, a phantom, not a file but a shadow of one, deeply buried, a partition marked by a series of alphanumeric characters, but underneath, in a flicker of metadata, the name, deleted_Alara. It wasn't just a recovery anymore. This was a secret, hidden, erased. A chill ran down his spine, replacing the familiar ache of loss with a jolt of primal suspicion. Alara didn't just disappear. Something was taken from her. As the decryption software bit into Alara's hidden file, the phone screamed. The screen glitched, pixels exploding into a kaleidoscope of static, then coalescing into a nightmarish vision. Alara. Not the Alara he knew, but a ghost running. Rain-slicked cobblestones. The brutal glow of a distant neon sign painting her terrified face in stark, desperate hues. Her breath hitched, a silent scream frozen in digital amber. Eyes. Wide with a primal fear that ripped through Alex's own chest. A shadowy figure, indistinct but menacing, gave chase. Then, a sudden, brutal cut to black. The sound of static, a harsh slap in the silence of Alex's lab. The digital past had not just opened a wound. It had thrust him into the heart of a nightmare. The phantom echo of Alara's scream faded, leaving Alex gasping for breath. The cold weight of the phone a stark reminder of the horror. He forced his shaking hands to steady, pushing through the decryption. The static cleared, replaced by something familiar, achingly real. Their chat history. The earliest messages, innocent, mundane. Good morning, sunshine. Thinking of you. Can't wait to see your face. Each word a delicate chisel, carving away the horror, revealing the foundation of their love. A stark, brutal contrast to the terror he'd just witnessed. The raw, unfiltered purity of their connection was a balm and a fresh wound, twisting a knife of longing and guilt in his gut. He had loved her and she had vanished. But now he knew she had been hunted. As Alex scrolled, the tender exchanges began to fray, the domestic bliss giving way to something colder, sharper. The language shifted subtly, insidiously. Assignments. Sources. Feeling watched. Alara's words, once beacons of affection, now became cryptic breadcrumbs, leading him down a darker path. The casual mention of taking precautions or being careful with who I talk to sent a shiver down his spine. She had been living a dual life, a dangerous existence cloaked beneath their shared jokes and declarations of love. The comforting hum of his lab now felt like a predator's purr, the shadows deepening with every disquieting revelation. He wasn't just reading history. He was uncovering a conspiracy, one breath at a time. The screen fractured, plunging Alex into a vivid, disorienting memory. Alara, under the cover of a bustling, rain-soaked market, neon signs bleeding vibrant hues onto wet cobblestones. She moved with a calculated grace, her trench coat pulled tight, hood obscuring her face. Her eyes, however, were an open window to her tension, constantly scanning the swirling crowd, wary of every shadow. She met a figure, cloaked and indistinct, beneath the harsh glare of a noodle stall. A quick, almost imperceptible exchange of phones, a silent transfer of encrypted data. Her gaze darted, sharp, assessing. A whisper of words, lost to the market's roar. Then she was gone, a ghost blending back into the throng. A fleeting glimpse of a world Alex never knew, a life fraught with covert danger. Back in the cold light of his lab, the flashback's chill still lingered. Alex, fueled by adrenaline, scrolled back through Alara's later messages. He saw them now, hidden in plain sight. Seemingly innocuous phrases, punctuated by odd numerical sequences, subtle linguistic quirks, coded language, a desperate plea, woven into their last, tender conversations. He pulled up a decryption program, cross-referencing keywords, a frantic puzzle solver. Each decoded fragment was a shard of ice, a chilling confirmation. She wasn't just talking about sources. She was giving him coordinates. Not just assignments, but targets. Alara wasn't just watched. She was trying to send him a map, a warning, from the very precipice of her disappearance. A final, desperate attempt to save him. A critical piece of Alara's code clicked into place. A final, chilling revelation forming in Alex's mind. But before he could process it, the lab screamed. The lights flickered violently. The hum of servers stuttered, then surged. An urgent, blood-red alert flashed across his primary monitor. Unauthorized access attempt. His heart hammered. Then, on a small, remote camera feed, a face. Distorted, pixelated, but unmistakably human, lingering for a fraction of a second before the feed cut to static. A ghost in his machine, not Alara's, but a living, breathing threat. They knew. They had been watching. The puzzle wasn't just about Alara anymore. It was about him. Alex froze, trapped in the sudden, suffocating silence, the stark reality of his peril crashing down. The flickering vision of Alara's terror, the sudden cut to black. It wasn't just a memory. It was a warning. Alex, a man forged in the crucible of digital warfare, reacted with the cold precision of a predator sensing danger. His lab, once a sanctuary, became a fortress under siege. Fingers a blur, he severed all external network connections, firewalls slamming shut like steel doors in a vault. Physical countermeasures engaged with the low hum of machinery. Electromagnetic locks clicked into place, reinforcing the blast-proof door, and optical sensors whirred to life, scanning every inch of his perimeter. His movements were practiced, almost ritualistic, a ballet of self-preservation he'd perfected over years of living off the grid. But beneath the calm efficiency, a new, raw layer of fear gnawed at him. This wasn't just a system breach. This was Alara, and the specter of her final moments had just become terrifyingly real, pulling him into a dark current he couldn't escape. Deeper into Alara's digital ghost, the truth began to coagulate, forming a terrifying portrait. Her investigation wasn't just a casual curiosity. It was a deep dive into the abyss of Ether Corp, a global tech behemoth lauded for its innovation but secretly built on a foundation of rot. Alex's screens pulsed with redacted documents, encrypted emails, and fragmented chat logs, Alara's meticulous evidence. The messages whispered of illicit data harvesting on an unprecedented scale, of human trials conducted in the shadows, of corporate power wielded with a terrifying disregard for human life. Ether Corp wasn't just a company. It was a hydra, its tendrils reaching into every facet of society, its shadow now falling over Alex's own isolated world. The air grew heavy, thick with the weight of her discovery, and a chilling realization dawned. Alara hadn't just stumbled upon a conspiracy. She had become its prime target, and now, so had he. A sudden, brutal cut through the data and he was back there, in Alara's past. The air crackled with desperate urgency. It was a rain-slicked night, the streetlights reflecting in the puddles outside a grimy apartment window. Alara, her face etched with fierce conviction, stood toe-to-toe with a distraught colleague, who clutched a tablet like a shield. "You can't publish this, Alara. They'll destroy us," the colleague pleaded, voice raw with fear. But Alara's gaze was unwavering, a moral compass fixed on true north. Her jaw was set, eyes burning with a righteous fire, a silent refusal to back down from the truth, no matter the cost. She pushed a folder into the colleague's hands, a look of grim determination sealing her fate, cementing a path from which there was no return. The image faded, leaving Alex with a visceral understanding. Alara knew the danger, and she walked into it anyway. Then, a jolt, a fragmented, unsent message to him. Her last outgoing communication trapped in the digital ether. It was a frantic, desperate plea. Her words a jagged cry for help across the chasm of years. "Alex, they know. I'm compromised. Trying to upload the package. Ether Corp. Can't let them. It's all here." The text was corrupted, broken, a digital scream echoing into the void. She was trying to warn him, to arm him, even as the wolves closed in. The package, a desperate last resort. He could feel the cold dread settle in his stomach, the weight of her fear reaching across time and death. She was running, hunted, trying to send him everything, to expose them before she was silenced forever. The message ended abruptly, a chilling ellipsis that spoke volumes about her final, terrifying moments. It wasn't just a message. It was a ghost whispering a mission. Grief was a lead weight in his chest, but Alara's words, her package and dead man's switch, ignited a burning resolve. She hadn't just vanished. She had prepared. She'd been too brilliant, too resilient, to simply disappear without a trace. Alex, fueled by a renewed sense of purpose, dove back into the digital abyss, no longer searching for a ghost, but for a meticulously laid trail. He meticulously scoured the phone's residual data, the encrypted partitions, the metadata timestamps, the hidden directories, every digital nook and cranny. Alara, in her final, desperate moments, had encoded a legacy, leaving him a map composed of fragmented data, a series of breadcrumbs leading to the truth. His fingers flew across the keyboard, a symphony of focused determination. This wasn't just about justice. It was about honoring her sacrifice, about completing her mission. He would find it, whatever it was, because Alara had trusted him to. The digital threat he'd meticulously analyzed, the abstract conspiracy he was uncovering, suddenly shattered into terrifying physical reality. A deafening, rhythmic pounding erupted from his heavily fortified apartment door, each thud vibrating through the very concrete of his sanctuary. Boom! 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 It wasn't a knock. It was an assault, the sound of unseen figures attempting to breach his defenses with brute force. Alex froze, mid-keystroke, his breath catching in his throat. The screens before him, displaying Ilara's breadcrumbs, seemed to mock his digital security. This wasn't a firewall they were trying to bypass, it was solid steel, and it was taking a beating. The metallic groans of the door echoed through the lab, each impact a terrifying countdown. His blood ran cold. The paranoia he'd always lived with suddenly manifesting into a terrifying, imminent danger. They had found him, and they were coming in. The relentless, deafening assault on his door intensified, each metallic clang reverberating through his bones. Alex was in a desperate race against a clock he couldn't stop. With every splintering groan of the steel, he knew his time was running out. His fingers flew across the keyboard with a frantic, almost violent speed, pushing his system to its absolute limits, trying to download the critical fragmented data Ilara had desperately tried to send. Sweat poured down his face, blurring his vision, but his eyes remained fixed on the progress bar, inching forward with agonizing slowness. Every line of code, every byte of data, felt like a lifeline, the only key to understanding Ilara's fate and securing his own survival. The air was thick with the dust of the crumbling door, the roar of the impact a primal drumbeat against his temples. He knew they wouldn't stop, and neither could he. Not now. Not ever. With a final, desperate surge of adrenaline, Alex's fingers slammed down, completing the download just as the door buckled inwards with a terrifying shriek of tortured metal. There was no time to celebrate, no time to grieve. He triggered a precisely placed explosive charge, a last resort designed to obliterate his lab's remaining hardware and create a massive, deafening diversion. The detonation rocked the entire apartment, sending a concussive blast of heat and shrapnel outward. Smoke and debris instantly filled the room. Without a second thought, he dove headfirst into a hidden ventilation shaft, a dark, narrow tunnel he'd prepared years ago for this very moment. Scrabbling, grunting, he clawed his way into the claustrophobic darkness, leaving behind the cacophony of his shattered sanctuary and the inevitable inferno. His only thought: get out, survive, and unleash Ilara's truth upon the world. The escape was frantic, terrifying, but it was just the beginning. The world outside was a visceral assault, a symphony of sirens, a kaleidoscope of neon reflecting off rain-slicked asphalt. I spilled out of the grimy ventilation shaft, disoriented, every nerve screaming. The metallic tang of city air, the oppressive weight of concrete and glass, it was a stark contrast to the sterile sanctuary I'd built. I was a ghost in the machine, a rogue algorithm cut loose, carrying not just the immense burden of Ilara's legacy, but a data package that could unravel an empire. Every shadow held a threat, every flicker of light a potential witness. With nowhere to go, no one to trust, the city itself became a predator, its towering structures looming like silent, judgmental giants. This wasn't freedom. It was merely a different kind of cage, colder and far more dangerous. Instinct, sharp and unyielding, led me to the city's forgotten edges. A decrepit server farm, a graveyard of forgotten data, offered a sanctuary of sorts. Dust motes danced in the sparse light filtering through broken windows, illuminating silent rows of defunct machinery. Here, amidst the echoes of failed ambitions, I could breathe, if only for a moment. My makeshift workstation, powered by scavenged components, hummed to life, a fragile beacon in the encroaching gloom. But the silence was deceptive. Every creak of rusty metal, every distant city drone, was a potential harbinger of pursuit. My eyes constantly swept the perimeter, a nervous tick, a desperate prayer that this fragile haven wouldn't betray me. The data, immense and dangerous, awaited, a ticking time bomb in my lap. The digital floodgates opened, and Project Red Star unfurled before me, a testament to Ilara's relentless brilliance and terrifying foresight. It was a meticulously documented blueprint of EtherCorp's monstrous ambition. A global surveillance network, vast and insidious, siphoning every whispered secret, every fleeting thought. Predictive manipulation, social control, not a distant nightmare, but a chilling, present reality. My heart hammered against my ribs, a drumbeat of horror and admiration. She had seen it all, charted their every move, painstakingly compiling the evidence that could bring them down. But the sheer scale of it, the chilling precision, revealed not just their power, but the impossible odds she had faced, alone, against an empire of data. Then came the wound, deep and personal. Hidden within Alara's files, a digital ghost, was the damning truth. A familiar face, a trusted confidant, a mentor, linked irrevocably to EtherCorp. The betrayal wasn't just professional. It was a poisoned arrow aimed at the very heart of Alara's world. The image flickered on the screen, a kind smile, now twisted into a mask of deceit. It wasn't just the enemy out there. It was the enemy within, someone who had sat at their table, shared their dreams. The revelation struck me like a physical blow, curdling the past, making every memory a lie. Alara hadn't just been hunted. She had been sold, delivered into the hands of her destroyers by someone she believed in. The pain was unbearable, fueling a cold, righteous fury. The fury, however, was a luxury I couldn't afford. EtherCorp was a hydra, and I was just one man, bleeding. Alara's files held another secret. An encrypted channel, a lifeline to a desperate, fragmented network, the Resistance. They were a whisper in the dark, activists and whistleblowers fighting their own battles against the Shadow Empire. The decision weighed heavy, a moral calculus of immense risk. To reach out was to expose myself, to paint a target on my back. But to remain alone was to guarantee failure, to let Alara's sacrifice be in vain. My finger hovered over the send button, the finality of the action a physical presence in the stale air. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about honoring her, about striking back. The choice was made. The chosen rendezvous was a bustling public square, a cacophony of anonymous faces, each a potential spy, each a potential shield. I spotted Vesper across the throng, a ghost in the crowd, her eyes sharp, assessing. Our meeting was a silent dance of suspicion, every glance a question, every gesture a test. The air crackled with unspoken risks, the weight of Alara's data pressing down on us both. We spoke in hushed tones, words carefully chosen, our voices lost amidst the city's ceaseless drone. This fragile alliance, forged in desperation, felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss. Trust was a currency neither of us truly possessed, yet we were forced to trade it, knowing that a single misstep, a solitary betrayal, could send us both plummeting into EtherCorp's unforgiving darkness. EtherCorp's response was swift, brutal, and utterly chilling. As Vesper and I began to outline our fragile plan, the city plunged into chaos. Traffic lights died, public transport ground to a halt, the digital pulse of the metropolis flickered and died. On a blaring cafe screen, news reports flashed, showcasing widespread system failures, a digital blackout spreading like a plague. It was a demonstration of absolute power, a chilling warning broadcast across every silent screen. Interfere, and we will unravel your world. EtherCorp wasn't just a corporation. It was a digital god, striking with invisible lightning. My blood ran cold, but a fierce resolve ignited. Their move had shattered any illusion of a silent war. They were coming for us, and the stakes had just gone impossibly high. The fragmented vision solidified, fully reconstructed, brutally vivid. Alara, desperate, rain-soaked, cornered in a grimy, forgotten alley. The shadowy figures of EtherCorp agents closed in, relentless, their movements precise, deadly. Her fingers flew across her device, a frantic dance against time, trying to upload the red star data, to ensure it saw the light. Every impact, every stumble, etched itself into my mind. The chase was a primal scream, a fight for truth against an oppressive silence. She fought with the fierce courage that defined her, but the numbers were overwhelming. In her final, defiant act, as they closed in, her eyes met mine through the digital ether, a silent promise, a last desperate activation of the dead man's switch. Then a brutal cut to black. The echo of her sacrifice, searing and indelible. As Alex plunged deeper into Alara's labyrinthine code, the true brilliance of her final strategy unfurled before him, chilling in its calculated precision. This wasn't just a data dump. It was a symphony of deception, a masterpiece of misdirection. Alara hadn't just hidden the truth. She had woven an elaborate tapestry of lies, deliberately seeding plausible, yet utterly misleading, intel through EtherCorp's own compromised channels. Every leak, every betrayal she seemingly orchestrated, was a meticulous step in a grander play. A shimmering web of false trails designed to pull EtherCorp's gaze away, to buy time, while the real Red Star data, the undeniable truth, lay dormant. A silent digital bomb waiting for this exact moment to detonate. Buried within Alara's encrypted files, a ghost of a message flickered to life, revealing not the face of a monster, but the agonizing plea of a soul trapped. It was from the traitor, not a direct confession, but an echo of their desperation. Alex and Vesper watched, a cold dread settling between them, as the message detailed not malice, but a harrowing coercion. A child's chronic illness, a direct threat to a family member's life. The betrayal was born of terror, a parent's impossible choice, twisting their heart into a weapon against their will. The stark, digital confession presented a profound moral chasm, forcing Alex to confront a truth more complex, more human, than simple good versus evil. The lines blurred, the enemy's face softening into one of shared pain. Alara's dead man's switch wasn't just a contingency. It was a compass, guiding Alex straight to the heart of the beast. Her final directive pointed to a specific EtherCorp server, the very nucleus of Red Star, a sprawling digital brain housed deep within their most heavily guarded data center. A fortress of steel and code, impenetrable, designed to repel any assault. This was it, the intended final upload point for her meticulously gathered evidence, the place where the truth was meant to detonate and shatter EtherCorp's empire. And now it was Alex's ultimate target, a glowing red pin on a digital map, a beacon of impossible danger, calling him into the abyss. Then the world outside exploded. Vesper, a ghost in the urban night, led a small, highly trained team in a coordinated, high-tech diversionary assault on a secondary EtherCorp facility. Flashes of fire tore through the darkness, sirens wailed, and the deafening roar of explosions ripped through the cityscape. Critical security forces, responding with panicked urgency, were drawn away, pulled like moths to a destructive flame. Chaos erupted, a perfectly orchestrated maelstrom designed to create a single, fleeting breath of an opening. With every shattered window and every burst of gunfire, the path cleared, a narrow, perilous corridor forming, allowing Alex to slip unseen towards the real prize. The main data center, the heart of the empire. Under the cover of the unfolding chaos, Alex, a phantom in borrowed skin, utilized Alara's bespoke stealth tech to infiltrate the main EtherCorp data center. The sheer scale of the facility was breathtaking, a sprawling monument to corporate power, cold and indifferent. Gleaming chrome corridors stretched into infinity, punctuated by the silent glint of security cameras and the low hum of unseen machinery. It was a high-tech fortress, a sterile, intimidating hive mind, every inch designed to detect, deter, and destroy. But Alex moved like a whisper, his breath held, his every nerve alive to the potential threat. His focus was absolute, an unbreakable laser beam on the objective, pushing aside the fear, fueled only by Alara's memory. Deeper and deeper he pushed, through layers of steel and code, until he finally reached it, the central server room. It was a cathedral of data, a vast, humming, awe-inspiring chamber that stretched further than the eye could see. Rows upon rows of towering racks, each an intricate lattice of blinking lights, glowing cables, and whirring machines, thrummed with the digital pulse of EtherCorp's global dominion. This was the digital brain of Red Star, the very heart of their illicit empire, a place of immense power and cold, calculated ambition. The air crackled with raw energy, a sensory overload that threatened to overwhelm. Yet Alex stood his ground, a lone figure in the glowing digital maelstrom, ready to unleash the truth. With a deep, shaky breath, Alex initiated the final upload. Alara's red star evidence, painstakingly recovered, slowly began to stream into EtherCorp's core network. As the data surged, fragmented images and echoes of Alara herself flickered to life across the myriad screens surrounding him, her face, her smile, moments of shared laughter, all ethereal and spectral, a ghostly, inspiring presence guiding his every keystroke. It was as if she were there, whispering instructions, urging him on. The hum of the servers intensified, a crescendo building towards a digital reckoning. This wasn't just Alex's fight anymore. It was Alara's triumph, a digital ghost taking down an empire from within. Thousands of miles away, in a secure, opulent command center, the ruthless CEO of EtherCorp received the catastrophic alert. The screen before them, a massive holographic display of their global network, began to bleed red. Red star data, Alara's damning truth, wasn't just uploaded. It was propagating uncontrollably, a viral storm tearing through their carefully constructed digital empire. The CEO, a figure of icy composure, watched in cold fury as their power, their legacy, began to crumble into dust. Their empire, built on lies and illicit gain, was being systematically dismantled, not by an army, but by a ghost in the machine, a whisper from the past, echoing a terrible, undeniable truth. A final keystroke, a grim victory echoed in the silent hum of the server room. The data, Alara's truth, now unleashed. But the triumph was fleeting, shattered by the soft hiss of the door behind him. He didn't need to turn. The air grew heavy, thick with the weight of an impossible choice. There they stood, silhouetted against the emergency lights, a weapon glinting with cruel indifference. Alex finally turned, his gaze meeting theirs. Not anger, no, but a profound, aching sadness. He saw the torment etched on their face, the silent war raging behind their eyes, loyalty battling survival, a soul fractured by coercion. The betrayer's hand trembled, the weapon wavering, unable to complete the horrific act. A single tear, Alex thought, would have been easier than this shared, suffocating moment of understanding. Then, a primal scream ripped through the air, the alarms, a deafening symphony of EtherCorp's fall. Alex didn't hesitate. He launched himself forward, a phantom in the labyrinthine corridors, adrenaline coursing, every sense screaming with a desperate need for escape. Security forces, a relentless swarm of black-clad wasps, poured from every access point, their weapons tracking, their guttural shouts echoing. He dove, rolled, a blur of calculated movement through a hail of energy pulses, the air whistling with near misses. The city outside pulsed like a desperate heartbeat. As he breached the perimeter, Vesper's team erupted into a coordinated symphony of covering fire, muzzle flashes cutting sharp, orange streaks through the rain-slicked night. Propelled by sheer will, Alex lunged through the breach, leaving the crumbling fortress behind, swallowed by the sprawling, anonymous concrete jungle. The hunt had begun. The first tentative rays of dawn crawled over the city's jagged skyline, painting the concrete an ethereal gold. Alex stood on a desolate rooftop, the chill wind a final catharsis against his exhausted skin, the frantic pulse of the night replaced by a profound, almost terrifying quiet. In his hand, the restored phone hummed, Alara's face smiling up at him, her eyes, now clearer than ever, holding the truth he'd finally unearthed. Below, the city stirred, its awakening accompanied by a global chorus. News anchors across channels proclaimed the downfall of EtherCorp, the shattering exposure of Project Red Star. Her mission, her sacrifice, echoed in every broken headline. He closed his eyes, a singular tear tracing a path through the grime of battle. It wasn't just a new day. It was a new world, bought with a price only he truly understood. The sterile hum of the server room contrasted sharply with the battle's echo. He stood there, Elias Thorne, architect of the terror, silhouetted against a wall of flickering data. His eyes, devoid of remorse, met mine. "You think this ends here, Michael?" he sneered. "It never truly ends. We just choose who bleeds next." The truth hit me. He hadn't wanted revenge. He wanted to prove I was still that man. My hand hovered over the detonator, rigged to erase Thorne's entire empire. But also, the evidence. The leverage that could clear my name, explain everything to her. A single press and it would all vanish. A ghost like the man I used to be. The choice was a blade in my gut. Justice or oblivion. Redemption or a final, self-preserving silence. Her innocent smile flashed. The only thing unstained by blood. The silence stretched, heavy with years of sacrifice. My thumb moved. Not to the detonator, but to the comms unit. "Alpha 9 to command," I rasped, my voice raw. "Package secured. Requesting immediate extraction." Thorne stared, a flicker of surprise in his cold eyes as his screen went dark. I hadn't chosen oblivion. I hadn't chosen revenge. I had chosen to live, to face the consequences, to drag the monsters into the light. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, I was ready for the peace that might follow, and I would fight for it with every last breath.